Look who's back, Jack. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Welcome into the latest Traded Black podcast. Good to be back home here in North America. What a great trip. Mary Jane Berlin. Bring up some of the highlights, including obviously the interview that some of you are going to be seeing later this week with Iron Mike Tyson. Got some great dialogue from him in our interview. Hopefully we're going to get that out tomorrow, but I'll keep you all posted, just waiting to get confirmation from his team and his publicist. So I'll highlight some of the stuff there as well. A lot of stuff going on. Tilray making some big news, along with some other things. So lots to get into. And let's welcome back AV and a big round of applause as he held the fort down all week. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you again.
It's good. It's been storming in Florida for the afternoon, but weather's finally nice. And yeah, it's been a interesting week. Solo piloting the show.
I feel like I haven't seen you in about a month, but long travels. Yeah. But man, it was great getting over there. But on the way back, I checked in Sunday morning and they said my flight ticket was not issued. So I had to stay in Berlin an extra day and spend an extra $2,300 on a last minute flight ticket. Gotta love.
So good.
Oh man, it was brutal. But all in all, got home safely. But what a trip it was. And as I said to you last week briefly, there was 2,500 exhibitors at this conference. There's probably about 100,000 people that checked in, but you saw Big Mike in the interview that we posted yesterday. He said it was the best conference he'd ever been to.
I'm sure it's mimicking MJ Biz back in 2015.
Yeah.
2015, 2016. I mean, MJ Biz was just booming. Everybody was excited to be there. It was everybody thought the industry was new, exciting, growing, and now we're here.
Yeah.
In the States. Not saying it's not new and growing, but the excitement factor has kind of been sucked out of the sales to a certain degree while we get our cards in order.
You had your honeymoon in Italy, and I found out it's only a 45-minute flight from Germany. A lot of Italians.
I got married in Italy. I had my honeymoon in Greece.
Oh, okay. You got married. Right. But check out Berlin. If anyone here, leave some comments below. Anybody been to Berlin? What an amazing city that is. I never knew. And the best time to go is June. Gets dark around 11:15. The sun comes back up a little after 4 o'clock, but a beautiful city.
That was the best part about going to Vancouver last year in July. It got dark at 11:30. Like 11:15, 11:30 at night. It was great.
Cato, Berlin was awesome. I think that's what you're trying to type.
No, Berghain is a dance club in Berlin.
There was a few
it's the hardest club to get in like the world.
Didn't go, but there was some industry events 420 Pharma put on, but saw Raj Grover and got to see him in a social scene along with a few others, but it was amazing. You know, it's just, if anything, you know, everyone says that if we can get reform, man, this is a global opportunity. And I hope that's the case because we need that momentum. And I know we've been working hard to obviously bring you news related to what's going on in North America, but it's good to see some positive sentiment. And the only way you can really understand it is actually planning on going there. Emilio, I'm planning to visit Germany. Go. It is amazing. That city, Berlin, is incredible, but very liberal city. And all the money they say is in Munich. It's a very conservative city. So I learned a little bit about the country itself. But speaking of Europe, let's keep on that topic and let's kick off today's show. And we begin, and I think a lot of our Tilray audience will like this, but a very, very interesting announcement. They became the first company authorized to sell branded cannabis in Italy. We're talking EU GMP flower, full authorization by the Ministry of Health. This is a country of 59 million people, and there's been limitations through Bedrocan as to how much has been distributed up until now. So this is a big moment for the company, and not to mention the market size, because if you had to compare it to Germany, it's probably a couple years behind, but with its limitations, there's been constraints on the growth of the industry, but that changes now. And they're the only company entering the space. So I'll be curious to see how this, opportunity expands for Tilray. But what do you think of that announcement?
It's good. It's good. I mean, they've got a first mover advantage in Italy. Italy is going to be a potentially large market. I know we talked about it at the GCRS when we were there with Artemis and a bunch of the other companies from on the regulatory front in Europe. We talked about actually the Italian market coming online, being backed by the government. They're getting it right, and Tilray's got I think this is the first license to sell diversified products, which I know there's 3 strains that were authorized: Tilray THC 25%, Tilray THC 18%, and then Tilray THC 9% and 9% CBD.
Okay.
in the strain. So, I mean, it's great. I mean, obviously it's a very small market. It's going to have to grow and develop. But I mean, everybody that's been first to market, especially in the EU, has kind of got to build their foundation and really build a business and watch these markets grow from inception.
Yeah, well, pharma grade cannabis with real therapeutic utility. I was reading some of this stuff. It's not a pilot program, real distribution to real pharmacies. And quite honestly, take note, because I'm sure as more and more of these European countries, and if I could take anything away even from last week, countries are getting behind this. There's a big movement, and there's huge upside potential, to say the least. And even in Germany, when I was talking about last week, the distribution and exporting opportunities for a number of key players, including Tilray, Village Farms, and a few others. But some of the guys I talked to, like over 80% of the cannabis right now in Germany is coming from Canada. So big upside potential. And then you start to expand and see a domino effect in other countries. That's why we keep talking about some of these Canadian LPs being the turnaround stories, which is great to see.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, and granted, these markets are small, especially when you look at the US. I think we were talking about Italy, because it's about 12 million euro in revenue currently. So it's tiny.
It's tiny.
I mean, there's a single dispensary in Florida does more than that on an annualized basis.
But,
if you wanted to take that, but they're going to grow, and they're going to consistently and steadily grow, because these are medical markets that are patient first, backed by the government.
Yeah.
So they're not dealing with the regulatory quagmire that we have to deal with here. These are being set up right from inception. Yeah.
I don't know the numbers, but the constraints as far as limitations through Bedrocan, I've heard some numbers that there was huge limitations. And that's why I think keep your eye on this, because at first glance, like you said, 12.5 million euro market, but that could grow quite quickly based on.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have access. Also about VFF, Dan, I'm almost positive VFF spun off those Texas assets in the veggie business that was spun off. So I don't think those assets are there anymore to potentially convert to hemp.
No, I think they are. They spun off the produce, but yeah, they still have the facilities. I'm pretty sure I touched on that with Paul last week.
On the actual Texas facilities?
I got to double check that, but I'm pretty sure. But you'd think if you sold those assets for 40 million, if you had 40 million in cash, it was filling those.
The vegetable business, they're not going to sell the vegetable business and not sell the greenhouses.
Let me double check on that. I'll ask Sam after this. But anyway, if we're incorrect, trust me, we'll get it fixed. But I think that could be the case. But either way, good news for Tilray. Seeing a few other comments here too. And yet Tilray's only up a penny today. Yeah, we've been there. Thoughts on GTA not being awarded the rec license in Minnesota?
That was surprising. They've been waiting on that for some time now. I'd be curious to see if it was politics that played into that. I mean, I don't know as much about the Minnesota market dynamics as I should have, as I should. But that was very surprising for them not to get the license.
Yeah. Michael Grippin, thoughts on Terrence Cole still not being voted in? We actually highlighted it. You did about 2 weeks ago in our newsletter, but you have said under the Biden administration, when it came to these appointees, I think the average was around 100 days, was it not? You'd said?
Yes. Average is 100 days.
So there you go, Michael. And I hope that gives you a little bit more understanding that, yes, it'd be nice to get him sworn in and approved and appointed, but long story short, just manage expectations. This could take another couple of months, quite possibly. What was that? Fred Gans. He did tell you that, Shad. Yes. Thank you, Fred, with regards to Paul and the interview last week. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. All right, let's keep moving along as we just brought up Tilray. Let's zoom out now for a second and really look at what we're looking at now, as I wrote down some notes. Now that we're a decade into cannabis legalization, the so-called social experiment at the time, critics warned of chaos, increased youth usage, and basically the downfall of society. But fast forward this year, and the numbers tell a completely different story. So since 2014, legal adult use cannabis has generated over $24.7 billion in state tax revenue. Just last year, $4.4 billion in 2024 alone. And here's the kicker. Teen cannabis use has actually gone down in most legal states. Between 28% and 46% drops among 8th to 12th graders since 2011. Hello, all lawmakers, this is telling data, is it not?
Yeah, it's great. All the data points to the contrary of what Kevin Sabet and Sam say as it relates to cannabis. I would be willing, or I would actually hope that they would actually see this data and they try to refute it. I don't think they're going to be able to, because I mean, the numbers really don't lie. And we've known that legalizing cannabis, you've seen violent crime go down, you've seen teen usage go down,
Yeah.
you've seen the illicit markets go down. I don't want to say it's a huge net positive when you legalize cannabis, because obviously some people still see it as an illegal substance and a drug and a narcotic, as it is currently defined via Schedule 1. But there are positives to society with legitimizing it, and seeing a reduction in crime, a reduction in adolescent usage, and a reduction in the illicit market, which all the data points to those.
Goes to show, and we had these conversations before when we were in Benzenga 2 weeks ago about belief versus actual data. And I think this is a great example in the US about how the belief still, as it stands right now, reigns supreme. But that's got to change, and hopefully does. But that's some pretty telling data.
Yeah.
All right. Let's now segue. Before we get into the regulate like alcohol topic, there was something that came down, which I know you covered on Monday, but I didn't get a chance to talk to you about it. And I want to bring in our next guest as well. And it's about SB3, and that was vetoed by Governor Abbott at the last minute on Sunday night. And with that, let's welcome in our guest here today, everybody's favorite friend, Gretchen Gailey, who, when she's not on her live stream, is trying to tone down some of these people on Twitter. How's your life been on Twitter the last 24 hours?
Oh, people love me on Twitter. They can't get enough of me. So I try and give the people what they want.
So what happened here? Bring me up to speed. What was going on?
With what? With me and Twitter?
Yeah.
That nothing's going on. We are out there advocating for the plant like we always have.
Yep.
And some folks are taking exception to us caring about the hemp side of the space, because people aren't realizing that if cannabis and hemp don't do this together, you're both going down in flames, literally.
Yeah.
So one plant, one set of rules. That's all we're pushing. I'm not a shill. If I'm a shill for anybody, I'm a shill for patients. I'm a shill for consumers.
Good point.
No one's paying us. This is about getting the proper regulations in place so people can get safe, effective medicine access. That's all we're looking for.
Yep, makes sense.
Cannabis or hemp, same damn thing. I don't care what y'all say. You want to get in a fight with me? Come to Washington, happy to do it. I'm tired of talking to guys who don't have a name, who have some cute little cartoon for their face. If you really want to get into a real debate, be a man or a woman who you might be. I don't know. You guys refuse to put your identities out there. Stand up and actually say something and put your money where your mouth is. I'm sick of all this anonymous bullshit.
This is Trade to Black, grinding gears with Gretchen.
I get mad. Guapa likes to call it kvetching with Gretchen, but all right.
Well said. And I think that segues into our topic. And Anthony, I want to get your take on this too. But Governor Abbott, vetoed this bill at the last minute. I think it was the right choice, because it was a pretty, I think, swinging from one end of the spectrum to the complete opposite now. But I want to get both your perspectives on this and really what this means moving forward for the state of Texas. But Gretchen, I'll begin with you.
Well, for folks in Texas, for the hemp industry, it's another day to fight. I don't think they are out of the woods, but I think it's time that they come back to the assembly as a united front, which I know is very difficult for them to do, but it has to be done. You can't come back to the assembly with 20 different plans. But in defense of the industry, which I know everyone hates when I do this, they have been looking for age gate restrictions. They have been looking for some common sense solutions.
Yeah.
Dan Patrick wasn't a fan of any of those solutions. So like Nick said to Anthony earlier this week, I think we're going back to where this whole debate started at the beginning of the actual session, when they did come forward with some legislation. It'd be nice if now they would actually consider it and see what hemp is trying to put forward. I think it's important that they do so, because I think the farm bills are coming, and that's going to eat their lunch anyway. The industry needs to come with regulations.
Yeah.
Or
hold on. The farm bill is going to eat their lunch anyway. What does that imply?
It's implying there's going to be changes to the farm bill. For people who think they're going to live in the gray area forever in hemp, they need to get over that. That is changing. Everyone in Washington, even cannabis advocates, hemp advocates say No, we're tired. We do not want to see the unregulated cannabinoid market. And we agree with them. We want regulations. That is the only way this industry is going to move forward. They're tired of crazy, unsafe products or products you just don't even know what's in them. It's very necessary for us to show up and tell Washington what we want, to tell our state lawmakers what we want, or they're going to come up with some bullshit regs that they don't know what they're talking about. And that's what you're going to be stuck with. And the same thing's going to happen in Texas and the Farm Bill.
So then wouldn't the most logical thing be to have a 3-tiered system like alcohol, to where you have manufacturers, distributors, and retail that's licensed, and we just kind of cut out the BS around hemp versus marijuana, and it's all just THC that you're regulating at the molecular level?
I think that would be a big conversation for this industry to swallow at this point. Okay. I think lawmakers are good with regulate like alcohol, because then they don't have to really come up with any ideas or original thoughts on their own. I'm a big fan of States Act, was just in a briefing on that. Big fan of Prepares, where the industry shows up and tells them how we can work with the actual agencies that exist to make this what people want in their states by following the state law. If your state is legalized medical, great. That's what they're going to work with. If it's adult use, perfect. If it's just CBD or hemp, again, so the feds want the same parity. So there is not this ridiculous back and forth and confusion and the gray markets that continue.
So how was that briefing on the States Act? I mean, because I know you were talking to staffers, and staffers, announced to me until I started to get actually involved with coming up to DC, I know that they're involved with educating these lawmakers a lot of the time on these specific topics, because they have no idea. They don't have the brain capacity to be understanding all of this shit. Were the staffers well in tune with what you were talking about around the States Act?
No, not at all. Zero. Okay. No. And that's what I think people don't grasp, that cannabis is not an issue that is at the forefront of their minds. I mean, we're still explaining what 280E is, explaining how States Act is going to help with that. That's a huge part of what's killing this industry, and Congress doesn't even know what it stands for. And staffers are the ones who educate their bosses. And I'm not going to say they're all complete imbeciles. I'm talking about congressmen. They have a lot on their plate, so they rely on their staff to help them. So we need to be there educating them. So for a lot of these folks and new members coming in, it's not that they're just complete idiots. They're new to the space. They're new to states. I think there was one staffer in the entire room who said they did not have any type of cannabis in their state at the current point.
It's probably Nebraska.
Cannabis is here. They need to regulate it. And I think this Congress is willing to do that. Are they willing to do it in the way that we want? That's only going to happen if we show up.
Yeah. Jamie Campbell writes, big alcohol gets what it wants. So 3-tier is coming. No more synthetics, no more THCA flower. Pivot now. So maybe walk some of our viewers through that aren't up to speed, but this 3-tier system that big alcohol wants, how does that work? So that way people are up to speed and understand the whole process in that.
Are you talking to me or Anthony?
Yeah,
I'm
talking to either one of you if you want to take that.
I think Anthony is probably better versed, but the basic idea of regulate like alcohol is that they have the distribution. There's a baseline of regulations that every state would comply with, whether or not it's legal or whatever. They have medical, adult use, whatever, that there's interstate commerce allowed, that there's certain ways for it to be distributed and used across the various states.
Makes sense.
I'm sure Anthony can go a bit deeper. Yeah, I'm not an expert at all on the 3-tiered system.
It's quite simple. It's tiered off at manufacturing, distribution, retail. Those are your 3 tiers. They're all separate from one another. They've all got their own licensing. They've all got their own regulations, and they all act in sync with each other. It's a very efficient model. It's basically like the MSO model, but on a national level. It's where you'd have 1, 2, and then 3. And it would be efficient. It could be used to govern THC, with how it's manufactured, how it's distributed, and how it's sold in states. And one of the main problems too with hemp right now is they don't have track and trace. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest problem that THCA flower gives to this industry. You have a legal product that's being grown in Colorado, California, Mexico, God knows where else, that's being sold into these channels because there's no track and trace, there's no seed to sale, there's no standardization or formalization to this industry. That's what the MSOs and the state-run industry has. It's all track and traced. I'm probably going to get blown up in the comments with people talking about backdoor product going out and all sorts of burner distros and that creative stuff. that shit's a very small segment of what goes on. Most of it is all track and trace, all seed to sale, and it's all completely standardized and scanned throughout the system. That needs to be implemented industry-wide within the hemp industry, because then you have standardization and you cannot get these exotic, illicit products coming through and being sold into these channels because A won't match B, and then someone's going to get slammed from a regulatory standpoint.
Yeah. So now that this bill has been vetoed, there's a lot of things up in the air on how you fix this. What comes to mind on what's the first thing if you're Governor Abbott that needs to change? Because in a lot of ways, we look at this and was he protecting business interests? Was he avoiding legal chaos? We've seen a lot of that happen the last couple of years up in Arkansas, and I'm sure that had some influence on him. But he's got a lot on his plate right now, and he's got to fix this and fix this now. So what can we expect next, Anthony?
So he did what I think is common sense. He didn't sign it into law. He vetoed the bill. He put a special session on the calendar, and they're going to assess and create a framework, probably that is analogous to the original SB3, which, from what I'm hearing, would do away with THCA flower, do away with synthetics, edibles, beverages, and limited THC doses in terms of milligrams, let's say being capped at 10 milligrams. It's probably not going to look like what I just alluded to. There'll be some horse trading, and it's probably going to get chopped up to that further degree. THCA flower could still probably find its way in there one way or another. But if you want to talk about sensibly doing SB3, it would be edibles and beverages. And then if you want flower in the state of Texas, it'd be teacup, even though teacup is highly limited and it's a trash program, which we've all already come to the same conclusion on. Yeah. So they don't even really have they don't really have a solution to their problem truly with regulating flower out of the market in Texas. It's going to be I think it's going to be a shit show with that special session and with what they actually come to install as SB3 goes.
Gretchen, I'd like to get an idea. When we take a step back and we look at the amount of attention that the state of Texas and this whole topic has this garnered attention in Washington? Because we almost feel like in a lot of ways, this has gotten some national attention, but in some ways indirectly, has it helped bring awareness as to what's going on in the cannabis and hemp space?
It has brought awareness to what a disaster the hemp and cannabis spaces are. And I know cannabis doesn't like to believe this, but we're all lumped in together. They just look at this as a whole giant mess. And for Texas to be as large as it is and to still not have been able to figure this out, I think it's a big question to Congress of they don't think they know where to begin either.
When you say it's a big mess, like who are you speaking to and what do you say in that situation?
Well, I say it's a big mess because y'all didn't do anything. Right. I put it back on them. I mean, if you want to fix what's going on, then lawmakers need to actually do their jobs and start regulating.
Right.
But as I was talking to one office recently who is a big cannabis supporter and how they felt about hemp, because I know they are not giant fans of what's going on in hemp. They said, we don't want to, we're divorced parents. We're not getting into this and we're not picking a side. They don't know where to begin. All they know is that if it comes down to it, they're probably going to vote against what's going on with hemp because hemp is such a disaster for people who think people out there think I love hemp. I love access. I love safe products. I don't think prohibition is the answer anywhere. Neither does Ricky. Talking with him, we got into the fight in Texas because we did not want to see prohibition. We wanted to see the states be in line and doing things that they should be more in line with things on the federal level. So frankly, this idea that hemp cannot be fixed, I don't agree with. I think
hemp can be
with regulations.
Yeah,
people would adopt them. Congress would be more than happy to deal with it.
Hemp can easily be fixed. It's just the problem is if you fix hemp to look like marijuana, then you still have a fucked up industry because marijuana right now is a completely fucked up industry. Marijuana needs to get fixed. I don't want to say there's no real order of operations here because we don't know what's going to actually happen, but they both need to get fixed. Marijuana needs to be put into a environment where it can actually succeed that makes sense. And then you just create congruency between marijuana and hemp. and everybody should be able to compete, and businesses that are going to win are going to win. Businesses that are going to lose are going to lose, and bad actors, they're going to get federally enforced if they don't want to play within the confines of the industry. But I do think it's unfair. It's unfair the way that hemp is allowed to operate right now. But I also think it would be unfair to take hemp and put them into the screwed up conditions that the marijuana industry has to operate in right now as well.
I have to disagree with you on being it unfair. Hemp is following federal law. It is not their fault that the federal law sucks, that they did not look into this whole gray area, that they don't understand the various cannabinoids and how it all works. There are plenty of, and I got into this debate on Twitter. People are like, oh, we love the state licensed businesses. Well, hemp is a federally licensed business. These guys are legal. They are out there doing what they are supposed to do. There are bad actors in cannabis. There are bad actors in hemp. They all need to be put out of business. And the only way you get that is with regulations. And you will find that the hemp industry wants those same regulations as well. They don't want to be dealing with the idiot down the street who's selling some crap in gas stations. They want to also provide good products to their customers. And I don't understand why everyone thinks everyone in hemp is just some crazy criminal who's avoiding everything they possibly can.
So I really do firmly believe that the reason why you see a lot of people that are participants in the MSO landscape and a lot of the people that are participants in the state-run cannabis industry nationwide, they go after hemp because they firmly believe that hemp were the enemies against Amendment 3 in Florida, which hemp were the enemies against Amendment 3 in Florida. They donated millions of dollars to DeSantis. It was all over the news that they were in bed with DeSantis. You had the hemp stuff get vetoed by DeSantis in line with that. So now they just became public enemy number one for not bringing online what could be the largest market in the country.
Fair point.
So some of the vitriol from the MSO side of the aisle, do I think it's warranted to a degree that I see it online every day? No. But you want to know where the boogeyman was created? It was created because they're sitting there picketing against adult use cannabis in the state of Florida.
I hear you. Cry me a river that hemp learned how to play politics and cannabis is still sitting on the sidelines with their thumbs up their asses. Are you kidding me?
Learned how to play politics? So wait, hold on. You're saying that you're all for accessibility. So you're going to tell me that the guys that donated money to DeSantis to torpedo Amendment 3, which would expand access in the state of Florida for everybody, as well as decriminalize the plant, aren't acting in bad faith? They're not playing good politics? That's fucking erroneous.
What are you talking about? It expanded access just for adult use. It doesn't mean that the hemp guys can't have their access.
But no. But you just said that the hemp guys were playing good politics.
Right.
So playing good politics, you're now saying, is stifling access to the plant in the state of Florida.
I'm not saying that stifling access is good politics. I'm saying that they understood how to play politics. And this industry keeps sitting on the sidelines and ignoring how to get in the game. Yeah. I'm sorry if politics is not fun. I'm sorry if you don't make best friends doing it. But if you want to get laws and if you want things that matter to you, you need to get in there and you need to do it.
So you're not seeing that right now. So when you look at the hemp industry and how much money that they paid, but in fairness, cannabis did that and Kim Rivers raised $140 million. So in a lot of ways, the cannabis industry did get involved. But to your point, you know,
when you lose Miami-Dade County, you don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry. When you don't even get 50% of the vote, you have screwed up there. I don't believe that campaign was run very effectively in Florida, frankly. I think they let them run away with the messaging about them being monopolies and that people were pissed off about that. Yeah. I think they took the whole wrong approach in Florida. But also, in their defense, 60% is a very high threshold to get. It's not like they were trying to just get 50%. People need to remember that when they say, oh, it failed. They did get a good percentage, but not what they needed.
And the money wasn't raised, Chad. It was spent by True Leaf.
True.
That was 100.
How much of that was not True Leaf money? Maybe 40?
10% of it, maybe 20% at the most.
Yeah. So we always hear rumors about the industries working with each other. and it's one plant. They got to work with each other. How do you fix this? Because it just seems that what's that?
There's Don.
Yeah. Don, we're asking about you, buddy. Haven't seen you in a while. Let's just take that comment down. Just take it down.
He's right.
All right. So what do we do as far as merging, these industries? Because, quite honestly, you're talking about one plant and how they need to get, working with each other.
So
regulation changes that. Do we ever see that happening?
So just look at what's happening legislatively and what's being proposed in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Missouri as well. And I think Michigan. They want to bring in the hemp industry under the same office that's governing the cannabis industry within the state and create congruency between the two. It's happening on the state level. They just haven't, none of it's come to fruition yet. Okay. But the gears are in motion at the state level, at least, to bring these all under one roof, which makes complete sense, which brings you a step closer to the notion of this all needs to be just THC being regulated.
Michigan,
not hemp, not marijuana. Michigan, Missouri, and North Carolina. Okay.
Good to know. All right. Hot topic. Both have fair points, to say the least, but I like where both of you are coming from, but they all are valid points. But one thing's for sure, we need regulation, right, Gretchen?
We have to get regulation. That's the only way that Washington's going to move forward. And I think I love Tom Tillis being out there saying that we need to come up with a framework.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Which you know more about this than I do. How much weight does he carry in Washington?
He carries some weight.
Tillis.
He's been around a while. He carries some weight. He is on good committees. Tillis matters. And you need good vocal Republicans out there. And the fact that he's willing to say things, my hope is to get Tillis out there sponsoring something that brings us these kinds of regulations, kind of like the Preparers Act. These guys keep saying they want to see something. Perfect. Then why don't you write it? And so that's some of the things that we're working on. Obviously, anyone who's not a freshman carries a bit more weight. So Tillis is doing fine. Tillis is also up for re-election. And cannabis is an issue in his home state, North Carolina. So I think that may also be a reason that he's a little more vocal than he has been in the past.
Okay.
But he's on banking, he's on judiciary, all these places that we care about. So Tillis is important. If we can get him, I think we can help turn some of the other folks. Cornyn's the same way. I think he's going to be a tougher get. Frankly, I think Cornyn needs to wrap his arms around this since he's going against Dan Patrick and say how much he would love to see cannabis regs. I think that would go really. You don't think that would help him in the state of Texas to be totally against Dan Patrick?
You guys are
think he'd be willing to? You think he'd be willing to do that?
That's a hope.
His name's on a.
But he has spoken about the need for regs. He's taking kind of a line that Tillis has that we need to see more.
I could have swore he was on a bunch of those letters from Sam. I might be wrong. I might be thinking of someone else.
It also could be from the past. I mean, these guys are also evolving. Cornyn was a federal prosecutor, so he definitely comes from a law and order kind of perspective when it comes to the war on drugs. And he's been in Washington forever. So I could see now with especially what's going on in Texas, time for his stance to evolve a bit more.
Have you had lots of conversations with Senator Tillis in the past?
Yes.
Yes. And what's very big believer in cannabis? Like, what are some of the conversations that you approach him with?
Well, Don always likes to say we don't kiss and tell. I tell a little more than he does. Tillis is of the mindset that cannabis is, and this is not a secret, cannabis, the genie's out of the bottle. You got to deal with it. And if we don't deal with it, it's going to get worse.
Right.
So that's where he's coming from on this.
Well, I bring it up because it segues into our next topic about the regulate cannabis like alcohol. He's actually made some news. It seems like we're getting more attention towards this and it's gaining more and more traction with some high profile people, but it's definitely something that is a great conversation. Anthony, I know you brought it up in today's show notes, Buzz, because look, we've talked about this a lot, but why does it seem like it's getting more and more attention right now, Anthony?
Why? What is?
Just the talk and conversation online about regulating cannabis like alcohol.
Because it makes sense.
I know it does make sense, but I'm trying to elaborate on why is it gaining more attention right now? It seems like it's everywhere. We're seeing it. Like we've talked about this in the past, but in the last couple of weeks, it's definitely garnering a lot of attention.
It makes sense. It might be a good deflection. It might be a good deflection from the lawmaker, from the politicians. I mean, it's good politics. If you want to talk about cannabis and you want to do something that is going to relate to consumers, I mean, just punt it and say, hey, we want to regulate it like alcohol. Here you go. Figure it out.
I mean, they've been saying regulate like alcohol for years, ever since the start of the industry. That's something that they've put out there. I think recently, and I forget which group it was. It might have been the wholesalers, distributors, wine guys. I forget.
Yeah.
But recently, you know, they've been making more vocal news about wanting to be in the cannabis space and that they have the know-how to, excuse me, they have the know-how to do it. So they should be the ones to regulate it.
It was WSWA, I think it was last month. They did a fly-in.
Yeah.
And hemp beverages were big on that agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I think hemp beverages is a big reason that alcohol is looking at this side of things and saying they should be in charge.
Well,
you also get distribution from folks like the Teamsters, from unions in certain states. That's a big reason of also to regulate like alcohol.
Well, it's got their attention. We brought up a few times. I did last week and a few times before that about, you know, the conversation about Brown-Forman and their recent earnings report and how they were down 7%. And a lot of it was related to cannabis usage and how it's taken a dent in their market share, which I get. But if there's any indication about younger generations pivoting with consumer, you know, choices, did you see Game 7, the celebration after OKC? Like, it seemed like there was an alcohol touch. That was a lame celebration, but maybe there's, I don't know. I don't want to imply that they're using cannabis at all, but there was not a lot of alcohol consumption. It was
SGA was on Good Morning America the next morning. He looked baked.
Did he?
Yeah. He was grinning from ear to ear.
That's hilarious. All right, let's now shift. Go ahead. You want to finish your thought, Gretchen?
Oh, I was just going to say, relating to Brown-Forman, I met them at a cannabis conference probably back in like 2016. They've been around for a while, poking and trying to figure out what they're going to do. And they're not the only guys who've been around for a while trying to figure it out.
2016.
I think because they see the writing on the wall that this administration is going to move something forward. And so they're getting ready to pounce.
Interesting. All right, there's your big takeaway. There's your short clip. Let's now shift gears. The House just passed an amendment allowing VA doctors to recommend cannabis to veterans, something they've been blocked from doing for years. This is big news. This was reported by Marijuana Moment. Brian Mast was involved in this announcement. But Gretchen, I know this is something that you wanted to talk about when we brought you up before we went live. But this is a big moment, I think, for what was announced.
I think it's a good bill. This was co-sponsored by Brian Mast and Dave Joyce. It's always been a threat that veterans could lose their benefits, and this would take that away. I work a bit with Weed for Warriors, and they've always told me no one has really lost their benefits, but it would be nice to have a law in place that actually would protect them. And the fact that it's getting attached to appropriations bill that's going through, I think it has a good opportunity to actually get done.
Well,
it's piecemeal, but it's something that Republicans can easily get behind.
Well, it was brought up by Representative Mast, who obviously is a combat veteran. He basically put it out plainly. Narcotics are failing veterans. He says cannabis could be the difference between life and suicide for some. And quite honestly, Anthony, he's going to know that better than anyone.
Yeah, and he's on the Cannabis Caucus as well. So this is good to see from him. And I mean, I think the implications are pretty big if they're going to put into law that that VA doctors that are federal employees can prescribe medicinal marijuana, which then I think if you're looking at it logically, deems it having medical use by definition of that law. And you can kind of start to see the writing might be on the wall for rescheduling and or some sort of greater reform coming down the pipe makes complete sense because this validates it. You can't say it's a Schedule I narcotic, which by definition has no medical use. Meanwhile, you're mandating doctors that are federal employees to prescribe it as a medicine.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I believe
we can only be contradictory for so long.
Yeah, I agree.
To be clear, I believe it only applies in states where cannabis is currently legal.
Correct, but still, I mean, you have those doctors that are federal employees prescribing medical marijuana you can't say it's not a medicine if you're putting that behavior into law.
So what happens then, Gretchen, if this passes the House but stalls in the Senate again? Like, can the VA act on its own, or this has got to be passed? No,
it has to go past.
These got to be laws.
Yeah,
we need laws. I know this administration loves an executive order. They love to just throw things out there and let it go at it in the courts.
Yeah,
laws are much better. Laws will make it a lot harder to overturn. It's what we need to actually move this industry forward with some certainty. It's much more helpful. It's time that people stop playing politics with veterans. It's give them what they want. I don't understand why it's so hard to give these guys medicine.
Okay.
If they don't want to use opioids or whatever crap they got, then the VA should be doing everything that they possibly can to take care of veterans.
Yes. Stormy, I'm a retired veteran. Cannabis saved my life. Good to know. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you for your service, and very much appreciate you logging on here today. You add in cannabis, and also another amendment pushes the VA to prepare for psychedelic therapy integration. MDMA, psilocybin, ketamine, all on the table. That is gaining a lot of progress too. We got to reach out to Wiz Buckley as well. I know there were some good readouts from Compass Pathways. You had mentioned, Anthony, before we went live, but that seems to be garnering more attention than cannabis right now in Washington. Is it not, Anthony?
Yeah, they weren't necessarily good readouts. I think they were durable enough to potentially pass FDA, but the stock was down 50%.
50
on the readouts. Yeah, just so we're on the same page. I'm a firm believer of if you're going to give somebody the right to go defend this country from a military perspective, you don't have the right to tell them what they can and can't do when they get back. Whether it's they want to take psychedelics, they want to smoke cannabis, they want to do whatever. I mean, if you're willing to put your body and life on the line and go defend this country, you can do whatever the hell you want when you get back.
I think most Americans.
I know Wiz has talked about it a bunch. It's criminal, the fact that some of these vets have to go do Ibogaine in Costa Rica and Mexico and do all this sponsored bullshit. I mean, if they come back here, they should be entitled to do whatever they want, and their benefits sure as hell shouldn't be potentially rescinded because of it. I mean, it's just egregious the way that we've treated veterans in this country, especially as it relates to substances that if they want to use them, it brings them to equilibrium and it helps them cope with whatever the fuck they dealt with over there. Let them do it. That shouldn't even be a discussion.
Common sense. Absolute common sense. Needs to get done. All right, we're at the 45-minute mark. Good show. You guys got a lot of energy. Even our producer Arns is saying they're on fire today. You two were on fire. Some very valid points, but
I get mad. I get heated.
That's okay.
Well, I've never thought about it. What kind of? I mean, I like to look at things as cause and effect. And if you really want to look at the inflection point to where everybody got really, really adversarial and just throwing vitriol towards the hemp industry. Yeah. It was when DeSantis was caught taking money from the hemp guys in Florida against Amendment 3. That's when shit hit the fan. And everybody was like, all right, now we see what's going on. They're public enemy number one. And that really was the inflection point to where it was like, all right, well, let's go to war with these guys.
So what happened?
Not saying I agree with that. I'm not saying that it's warranted. But there's your cause and effect. That was the moment where everybody was like, all right, that's public enemy number one, because Florida fundamentally changed the outlook of the industry to where we are right now.
You're right. And this, like, I look at the strategy. If you're going to get through to anybody in Florida, it's the governor. And, you know, there's a lot of people in the cannabis space are going to disagree with the messaging that was done because it was inaccurate. But at the end of the day, to your point, Gretchen, this is politics. This is how you run a campaign. And I know the threshold was 60%, but I don't know how much it worked, but it worked enough to not get Amendment 3 to pass. But still 56%, of Floridians voted in favor for Amendment 3. So,
and this industry needs to frankly understand that public enemy number one are politicians. It's not each other. We need to be focused on changing hearts and minds, not bitching and moaning at each other.
Yeah.
Stamped it. I think that wraps up for today. It's a great message. All right. Just got a few text messages. I know some of you have been reaching out about when this Mike Tyson interview will be be sent out. We're just waiting for the team. I should have some feedback by tomorrow morning, but if we get full approval, make sure to follow us on our Twitter account at the Dales Report. It'll be posted online tomorrow, updates. But if we get approval, it's going to go out at 4:00 tomorrow. So a lot of stuff. I asked the question, if Donald Trump and you are good friends for 30 plus years, if he reached out to you, Mike, and asked you, what should we do about the cannabis industry? What would you say to him? So some really good calls and takes from Mike Tyson, but appreciate obviously Jason Wild and Brady Cobb and a few others that really put this all together. But I had no idea he was in Berlin, but it just came all together in a matter of literally 2 hours. And we did have one interview, I will say, that was at the event itself. The audio wasn't the greatest. I thought it went fine, but then we got a text message about 20 minutes later and said, hey, would you mind coming up to our penthouse at our hotel and actually doing the interview again? And we stripped down the podcast studio and literally marched out of there and ran as fast as we could to an Uber, set up, and it was great. And while my crew was setting up, I was just sitting there watching women's tennis, the Berlin Open, on a couch with big Mike Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson. Pretty cool experience.
Did I miss a Brady Cobb sighting? Seriously?
You know what?
No.
All right.
I forget the gentleman that was here a couple of weeks ago. I lost that bet because we did not see him at Benzenga. So refresh my memory. Who was that person I placed that bet on? Because I owe you $100. You know what I'll do? Hey, everybody. We got hats. What do you guys think of these hats? You like these hats? Just got them in actually yesterday. Look at those hats. Aren't those nice? We got
Those
them
are fancy
white.
hats.
We got them white. We got them in black. That was actually thanks to Brady as well. He hooked me up with this guy from Florida. So got some swag here. Anyway, what do we got going on later this week? Anthony, we got anybody set for Friday?
I got to look at the show notes. I'm not sure as of right now off the top of my head.
All right. PA, that's advancing somewhat. And we're going to know by the end of the month.
We should have some updates on PA Friday or Monday, because I know that there was a as per Bronstein, there was a hearing yesterday regarding some facet of cannabis policy. I don't remember off the top of my head. No, but he said we should get some stuff going this week.
No, did I miss Bronstein? Did he talk about Pittman at all?
Pittman, no.
Is that
the Senate leader? Yeah, he said that's just posturing.
I know he's a pain in the ass. Pittman is. See, I can say Republicans are pain in the asses too. People deal with it.
Mark writes, Shad and Anthony, I told you that True Leaf was at the bottom yesterday. Look how they bounced. They bounced pretty good today.
Didn't look at the stock.
I didn't get a chance to see either. Listen, we got a lot of busy stuff going on. But all in all, good to see you guys. Glad to be back and good to see to connect with all of you. But main takeaway here is we need to work as one and not fight amongst each other. The enemy is the politicians, and you got to get in front of them. Right, Gretchen?
100%. I would love to see more people walk in the halls of Congress. If you're coming. Well, July sucks. It's hotter than hell. But we won't be here in August. So I love how people are always like, oh, I'm coming. And they're like, come in August. I'm like, dude, Congress isn't in session. That's not how it works.
Summer recess.
But I think you will see some good things before summer recess. So.
Okay. Yeah.
That's my tease.
Next month, we're going to be launching a membership wall. So we're going to have some exclusive content, and we'll give you all the details the next couple of weeks, what that monthly cost will be. But we got some pretty good stuff lined up with some insiders, some panel discussions, talks with analysts, all that sort of stuff to take this platform to a whole new level. So I'll let you guys know in the next week or two as to what's going to be all featured in that. And you'll see that featured on our YouTube channel. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Today's Trade of Black is presented by Advisory Shares ETF PSIL, which trades on the New York Stock Exchange ARCA under the ticker symbol PSIL. Anthony, Gretchen, thanks. And we'll see you back here on Friday. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Well, I liked that one, didn't you? Let us know by leaving your comments below and stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. We appreciate you logging on here today and learning more information about where this industry is headed. If you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications and keep the conversation going by leaving some comments below. We always love to get your feedback. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for watching our latest Trade to Black podcast.